Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be testing out an Ultra League Pokemon that's seeing a large spike in usage at leaderboard ELO, and that is XL Runarigus. Time and power creep have not been kind to XL Runarigus, but with the big buff to Rock Tomb, people are testing it out to see if it can regain some of its old glory. For today, I'm pairing it up with a meta core, Cobalion lead, Malamar as the closer, and Runerigus as the save switch to hopefully lure out problem Pokemon and debuff them. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Runerigus. We're off to a tough lead in the first match, Cobalion into Shadow Poliwrath. I save switch into Runerigus, and my opponent is going to respond with Drapion. Now this is a matchup that up a little bit of energy, Runerigus can actually make life uncomfortable for the Drapion. I'm going to be shielding up the first, thankfully no crunch debuffs. Now, being able to flip this does require a bit of good luck on the side of Runerigus, as if Runerigus does get crunch debuffed, then things can get uncomfortable, but so far I have successfully avoided crunch debuffs. I reset the game data, so the game does think I'm a brand new player, but now with these two debuffs applied, let's see the damage from the Shadow Crunch. This crunch is going to connect, and the second one will actually not be enough to knock out. So now my Runerigus can actually win the twos. My opponent realizes this, they are going to let it go, and now they're going to send out a Sunglasses Blastoise. I debated going for the Shadow Ball here, but I opt for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb is going to do less damage, but it will of course apply a debuff. Blastoise is going to farm up to the back-to-back Hydro Cannons. Hydro Cannon is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Cobalion. There's the switch back into the Shadow Poliwrath, and I get to respond with Malamar. Malamar going to do very nicely here, even down a shield. These Psywaves absolutely shred the Poliwrath. Shadow Scald, big damage, but Malamar gets the back-to-back superpowers. My one worry is that Blastoise has quite a bit of energy stored. They are now 1 over a Hydro Cannon. If they can get to 3 Hydro Cannons, then they can potentially win this game. This is going to be tough. I send in Cobalion, they're firing off energy, and this game is going to come down to the wire. I make the Sacred Sword when they make the Hydro Cannon, and I believe this should guarantee me the win. It's going to be a very close game, but they should be 3 away from the Hydro Cannon, and I should be 3 away from the Sacred Sword. Let's see it here. Do they have the move? They do not. And despite a really tough lead, Runerigus made life very uncomfortable for Drapion in the mid-game, and with switch advantage, we're able to take the win. Tricky lead in the next match, leading Cobalion into Shadow Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite is going to farm up to a superpower, and I will respect it with a shield. Unfortunately, there is a bait from my opponent, so I'm going to bait back because I need to try and get some kind of advantage in this matchup. The Sacred Sword bait is successful. I'm going for the double bait, and if they shield, they have 2 options. They're either going to catch the Stone Edge or throw one before. So I actually throw the Sacred Sword at the Dragonite, expecting a switch out, and they catch on Steelix. Let's go. That play would have looked incredibly foolish if they stayed in with the Dragonite, but I figured there was no way they would stay in. They would throw one before, or they would catch. And if they're catching, it's most likely onto something that resists rock. So we throw a Sacred Sword at a flying type. It's caught onto a steel type. And just like that, we are in such a commanding position in this game. Runerigus Shadow Ball is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Dragonite. I've been debuffed by a Psychic Fangs, but look at the bulk on Rune. We tank it. We get the Rock Tomb. There's a catch onto Lapras, but Runerigus is just putting in so much work. I get to send in Cobalion, and Cobalion will get to unleash Sacred Swords. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Sacred Swords. Now I will have a move for the Dragonite as well. Dragonite's still healthy enough that a Sacred Sword will not be enough to knock them out. But this time, I actually do intend for the fighting damage to land on the flying type. So we get the Dragonite low, and now I get to send in Malamar. We get a nice little Psywave down, and that's a very clean win. Uncomfortable lead in the next match, leading into a Talonflame. I can potentially stay in with the Cobalion, but it's not an amazing matchup, even with Stone Edge, so I will save switch into the Runerigus. They throw 2 Incinerates, send in Guzzlord. This is not a great spot to be as the Runerigus, but I'm up energy and I get to apply debuffs. And Guzzlord is not a particularly fun Pokemon for Malamar to see either. Here, Guzzlord looks like they're going to try and commit to a big farm down. I'm going to continually apply debuffs with the Rock Tombs here. And look at Runerigus go. I really need them to shield. If they shield, I basically just win the game, but they're smart. They let it go. I'm forced to pivot into the Malamar, and now things will be a little bit uncomfortable. If they shielded, then I could have brought in Cobalion, double kick down, absorbed all their energy, and then had energy for the Talonflame. But great situational understanding from my opponent, realizing that they needed instead to just let the Guzzlord energy go, because this Talonflame is going to be a nuisance. Runerigus was able to flip the Guzzlord, but my goodness, this Talonflame, it's very low, but I don't have a lot of fast move pressure available. I'm going to send in Cobalion. Incinerate is going to register as they fire off the move. They are one away from their next move here. I'm going to throw one, wait, switch into Runerigus, and get a catch. So I'm able to preserve my shield and preserve my energy as well. And now Talonflame is going to switch out. It's Jellicent in the back, and unfortunately, this game is going to be a loss. If my opponent had shielded the Guzzlord, this could have been a very different game. At this point, there's not really a win con, so I'm just going to fire off the Sacred Sword. It's a little bit of bad manners, because at this point, there's just not a path forward. They end up no-shielding that as well. Absolute savage call from my opponent, but I'm very aware that I just can't win this game, so I'm more than happy just to let Cobalion go. Cobalion will get knocked out with the Surf. Runerigus put in work in that game, but unfortunately, we weren't able to win. Great lead leading Cobalion into Guzzlord. There's a safe switch into Golisopod, and Golisopod is a Pokemon that's a little bit uncomfortable for this team. I tried to build this team to cover as many meta threats as I could for testing out Runerigus, but Golisopod was honestly a bit of an oversight. But the good news is Cobalion is very strong into Golisopod. As you can see, Golisopod, they can fire off a bunch of Shadow Claws and 2 Aqua Jets. I can hang on here, and I will be able to fire off this Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to get my opponent extremely low if they let it through. They are going to let it through. In comes the Malamar, but no, they barely hang on. I have to respect the X-Scissor here. Opponent, they threw an Aqua Jet. Now I'm sad that I shielded that, and they're going to send out Guzzlord. Guzzlord re-hitting the field, going to be firing off some energy. The fact that they Brutal Swing early is pretty nice for me, because now I really don't have to worry about damage landing after I've debuffed myself with a superpower. So I will go for superpower number 1, followed by superpower number 2. This will not knock out, but it is going to get my opponent very, very low. They do decide to shield. I make it to yet another superpower. They will hang on, but not by much. Superpower is going to connect. I send in Cobalion to try for a snipe, but that ends up being a disastrous simultaneous swap, as I've now given my opponent's Virizion an energy advantage. Virizion is going to be going for the Leaf Blade. I will commit the shield. I know a Shadow Ball will not knock out, so I'm going to have to be a bit of a degenerate here. Shield and go for the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb will give me extra survivability because their attack has been lowered. The bad news for me is that my opponent's Guzzlord will have an ability to switch because our clocks are up. So I'm going to say they go for the combo here. I switch the Malamar and I get it right. Let's go. We catch the Brutal Swing, and by doing that, I can now Shadow Claw down a Guzzlord with Runerigus. They still have 2 Pokemon left available. They have the very low health Golisopod and Virizion. Shadow Ball, add Virizion, plus a Shadow Claw, picks up the knockout. We're healthy enough to survive the Shadow Claw from the Golisopod, and that game looked pretty doomed, but we're able to take the win. Same lead in the next match, and actually the same save swap. So it looks like someone may have made a video, either that or Guzzlord Golisopod core is just very, very common right now. Aqua Jet will land. I really don't like baiting here as the Cobalion because I do want to punish an O-Shield since Stone Edge is survivable if they let it go. Like the last opponent, they are going to end up shielding the first. I know that I can survive this, so I'll let it go and then click Stone Edge. I'm hoping my opponent does not commit to the Golisopod, because if they do, my backline is very, very soft to it. Stone Edge is going to be shielded. Now I'm just going to send in Malamar. I am going to have to double shield here as they will make it to double X Scissors. Opponent goes for an Aqua Jet here. I'm very confused by the play to go for an Aqua Jet. In the previous game, my opponent, I mean, they were very low, so I understand clicking the wrong move. But in this instance, they did see the switch in. Here, this will definitely be the X Scissor, so I will commit the shield. It's Aqua Jet again! Oh my goodness. They're going to send back in the Guzzlord. I'm farming up a ton of energy, and I farmed to 100. I'm expecting my opponent is just going to be firing off the energy with the Guzzlord now that I've debuffed myself, so we're going to get a back-breaking catch onto the 1 HP Cobalion, and just like that, we're right back in the game. In comes Malamar farming back up to 2 superpowers, but I reset my attack drop, which means this superpower is going to knock out. In the back is going to be a Shadow Tentacruel, and This actually could be a little bit tricky if they have Blizzard. Foul play, not going to do much here. I will make one final foul play. This is still not going to be massively impactful on the outcome of this game. It all just comes down to, do they have Blizzard? And when they throw before Blizzard energy, I know that I am safe. Now I just have to watch for a catch. I make the Rock Tomb. There's the catch. They time it perfectly, but I just did not want to let the catch happen, so I hold on to the energy. They fail the catch, and now Shadow Ball will deliver a knockout onto the Shadow Tentacruel. Cobalion into Shadow Golurk, disastrous lead, a save switch into Runerigus, and Runerigus is taking quite a bit of damage from these Shadow Mud Slaps. Shadow Golurk always has a terrifying damage output. Shadow Punch is going to be shielded. In comes Golisopod, and Golisopod will immediately be debuffed with Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb connects. That is super effective damage. They can return fire with a super effective Aqua Jet, but thanks to the debuff, I will actually survive this, so it will not knock out. I make another Rock Tomb, and my goodness, we are getting quite a bit of work here out of this Runerigus. They actually decide to let Golisopod go. They're going to send in Golurk. Golurk is going to get some nice farm. In comes the Malamar. Malamar farming up quite a bit of energy. Golurk going to fire off a move, and I will let this through. It is going to be the Shadow Punch. They're close to the next, but they don't get there. The Psywave KOs. They tried to commit. In the back is Tentacruel. I mistimed this charge attack, giving them an entire free poison jab. But the good news is I don't believe that it is going to matter. Cobalion is neutral enough into Tentacruel, and I'm just going to get a ton of value here out of my Malamar. Malamar is going to make one final foul play. The nice thing here is I do actually survive this as well, so I will be able to pivot out and send in Cobalion. Even with a potential Scald debuff, I still think I'm fine. The Scald does not debuff. I decided to go for the Sacred Sword here just to lock in some damage before a potential Scald debuff. Sacred Sword landing will very comfortably put it into Stone Edge range. It was probably close to Stone Edge range anyway, but I figured this was the safe way to avoid any kind of debuff shenanigans, and now I will make the Stone Edge, and despite a truly miserable lead, we're able to claw back in the mid-game with Runerigus, and that game is a win. Pretty uncomfortable lead here, leading into Galarian Weezing. I'm going to save switch into Runerigus, but it's a simultaneous switch out, and they send in Malamar. This is not good. The fact that my opponent switched out, either they hard read that I was pivoting out and they knew that Malamar would be solid, or potentially they're on a moveset that is walled by Cobalion. I honestly didn't really think of that possibility when I pivoted out. I just saw Fairy type and I was switching, but that is definitely a possibility. Now here, a Rock Tomb would not knock out, so I will go for the harder hitting Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to be shielded, and the fact that they shielded, I immediately regret not going for the Rock Tomb. So this matchup is pretty poor for the Runerigus. I'm going to send in my Malamar and just try and get as much energy as I possibly can. I know that I'm in a very, very bad position right now, but whatever advantage I can get, I'm going to try and go for it. I'm just going to go for very close to as much energy as I possibly can with the Malamar. Now that they've debuffed, I'm going to send in Cobalion. They're going to bring back in the Weezing, but if they're sending in the Weezing, that means that maybe they aren't walled, and maybe it was just a complete soul read on sending in the Malamar. Stone Edge is able to land, which is very nice, and now I am going to be met with a move. It's a Brutal Swing, so they are running a moveset that is fully walled. That works out very nicely for me. I am going to be no shielding because it appears they just don't have any moves to damage me. The Fairy Winds do add up, but the spam on Weezing is insane. They're able to fire off another Brutal Swing. I go for the Stone Edge, and oh my goodness, that was so sloppy of me. I let the Stone Edge catch happen onto the Malamar. I forgot that because they ended up throwing so many charge attacks there, they actually burned the switch clock. I send in the Malamar, firing off both foul plays just because I need the Weezing gone. Foul play is going to pick up the KO. In the back, oh, that's not what I wanted to see. It's going to be Zygarde. I will get the back-to-back superpowers here, so I can throw one and then throw a Psywave and then throw the next. But man, that is really not ideal. If they have Bulldoze, this game is just absolutely over. If they have Crunch and Earthquake, then I may still have a chance. I send in Cobalion, and I think my only path forward is to call a bait. I no shield, it's an Outrage, and while that's resisted, it does too much damage. If I shielded the Outrage, I genuinely win the game, even despite all the misplays, but unfortunately, I was not able to get the win. Hopping to the final match, and oh my goodness, Cobalion. absolutely dominating in this early game, leading into a Steelix. They save switch into a rollout Blastoise, and things are looking just absolutely incredible for me so far. This should pretty much be an unlosable position right off the bat, because I'm going to get to put the Steelix on the Runerigus later, and we know Runerigus will be an absolute nightmare for Steelix to deal with. Blastoise is going to go for the Hydro Cannon. Very comfortable no shield. I get to overfarm and play to the CMP die, so I can deny their energy. Let's see if they want to play for switch advantage. They will not, so down goes the Blastoise. They're going to send in Steelix, and I will fire off the Sacred Sword. I believe I can actually get a second Sacred Sword as well. So Cobalion getting incredible value in this early game. I do get another Sacred Sword. They can survive it, but it would get them quite low, so I actually get a shield. And this is really nice because their energy is not going to go far against Runerigus. I'm okay tanking whatever they decide to throw here, so I'm always going to no shield. They go for a breaking swipe, they get the debuff. In the back is Shadow Dust Noir, and at this point, this game is just over. I'm going to go for the Rock Tomb here. Even though they call the Rock Tomb, it just doesn't matter. All I needed to do was just make sure that Dust Noir couldn't really damage the Malamar, and debuffing Dust Noir's attack is a really good way to do so, because that's going to make the Shadow Dust Noir hit like a regular Dust Noir, and regular Dust Noir does not have the same damage output. So I can very comfortably absorb the fast moves and 2 Shadow Punches, and now I get to fire off the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to be no shielded. In comes the Steelix, and Steelix will be met with the Superpower, and unfortunately this was just a completely one game off of alignment for me, more or less. I get to pivot back into the Runerigus, and I believe we're actually going to win this game with both our shields intact, as Runerigus gets to the Shadow Ball, and this is going to be good night for the Steelix, as Shadow Ball picks up the KO, and that's game over. All in all, Runerigus, I really didn't give it a second thought with the Rock Tomb update, but I do think it does genuinely have play. The one thing I will say, this is more of an anti-meta Pokemon. I don't think it's a top meta must-build pick, but I think if you well support it with meta Pokemon, this thing can really catch opponents off guard, especially up a little bit of energy. That can help offset some of its pacing issues, and it can really take advantage of the fact that this thing has a monstrous amount of bulk, and with Rock Tomb and being able to debuff the opponent's attack, that bulk feels even stronger. So I was pleasantly surprised. Overall, I really wasn't expecting a lot, because I remember after it got Brutal Swing, I tested it and I really was not impressed, so much so that he didn't even make an upload on it. But I think with Rock Tomb, despite the fact that it's worse pacing now since it's not running Brutal Swing, I really think it has a nice anti-meta niche overall. The debuff spam and its incredible bulk definitely provide some value. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.